Welcome, this is To The Root podcast, brought to you by Transitions of Indiana and We Grow Hair Indy, where we get to the root of hair restoration solutions, navigating hair loss, embracing life's journey, and everything in between. Last week we heard from Will and Lindsay talking about treatments. This week we've got a special guest as we sort of continue the theme around multi-unit hair grafting, one of our good friends and kind of on the other side of the microphone today, JMV, John Michael Vincent, JMV.
I like the dynamic here. Normally it's me giving you the questions. Now the Q&A is coming from you. How are you, Darren?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure, obviously, to have you here and, thinking about our little journey here. And
I think was I one of the initial?
I think you were one of the first VIPs that we did.
It's been 9 years.
It's been 9 years.
Crazy years.
Crazy.
And it all hatched because I go to a Pacer game.
That's right.
And somebody took the picture of the back of my head. And it looked like somebody could land a helicopter back there or something like that. It looked like a helipad.
Right.
And we all giggled and laughed about it. Except I thought about it and I thought, I don't know how funny that is. And then you presented this idea. Right. 9 years later, it could not work better. The best part about this is, I know you're asking the questions, is the whole evolution process.
Yeah.
It seems like every year you guys find something new, measures to take that makes the experience. And with the technology, you get even more hair growth. Like, I'm assuming when I first started, how drastic the landscape has changed as far as technology and what you can do now compared to 9 years.
Yeah, it changed a lot. And I think the biggest change has been the different services we offer around the hair transplant process. Obviously, the transplants have changed. And you had a multi-unit hair grafting procedure just like I did. But the ability to maintain non-transplanted hair with growth factor treatments, things we've done in the recent past with you to kind of maintain that overall long-term look has been a huge advancement. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too. But I want to wind the clock back a little bit.
Yep.
Who's JMV? How did you end up doing what you do? And so take us through that journey.
Well, I'm a pretty big hillbilly. I come from southern Indiana, southwestern Indiana, in Greene County. Went to Eastern Greene. Still love where I grew up. Still go down there. My mom lives there too. Class of 88. Just like anybody else, played sports growing up. Liked to hang out. Loved music growing up. And I kind of took that in the form of going to that next level in radio in this case, but TV, radio, whatever. But I think it all has kind of happened because I'm just not really any good at anything else. I don't even know how good I am at this, but I sure as hell am not good at anything else. I had no skills that anybody wanted anywhere else, and I just kind of followed a path that has created, 25 years in radio in this market.
Well, I mean, I think you're being pretty modest.
No, I am.
But so
fortunate.
Was it specifically sports radio that you fell into first, or talk to us about that?
I love music.
Okay.
I love music. I love club music, remixing music, and I think that stems from where I grew up. You basically I grew up in the 80s, and I was a lover of new wave, but all you heard what was on the radio. Right. That was it. So I became a lover of DJs and local radio, and all of a sudden you started hearing bands, like in a John Hughes movie. You're watching Ferris Bueller or 16 Candles, and then the whole soundtrack is stuff that you haven't really heard, and I just became interested in that. So I started out as a music guy. I really wanted to do, and I DJ'd in Bloomington, and did that and had a great time, which, by the way, still happens today because I do the JMV Takeover every Saturday night on B105.7, which is old school radio, all request, and that's exactly how I grew up, a lover of music radio.
Yes. So the sports part of it, which of course is what you're first known for here in town. I mean, the 1070 The Fan, I mean, great show. You've got an amazing following. I mean, incredibly loyal. I've witnessed it when I go to the off-site events and the groupies you've got following you around.
They're good people.
They're great people. They're awesome. So how did the sports part come into play and what sort of influenced you to go down that route?
Well, I came up here. I moved up here, and I was still working in Bloomington, but I was doing radio sales in Bloomington at the time. And clearly I still wanted to be on air. And I just took a chance. A guy named Rob Lauer, who now works with Live Nation, I believe, up at Ruoff, hired me to produce for the then show Bill Benner and Tim Bragg in the afternoon on a different radio station than I am right now. And I would come in and do that. And I was always a big lover. of sports, but I had started listening to some national shows once I got up here. Jim Rome was one, things like that, and started to follow it and thought, I could do something like this as well. But the first thing I did was jump into it in a producer's role, and probably 6 months later, they exited, and Mark Patrick, who is an absolute legacy. Those guys are a legacy around here too, but Mark is probably more of a legacy known nationwide. Mark Patrick, he ended up rebooting his old Mark Patrick on Sports show in 2000 at that station, and I stayed on as his producer, and we were together for the next 5 years. And then when he made a transition to a national level, doing Major League Baseball network shows, I made the transition. He was on Fox Sports Radio at the same time, I think, but I made the transition to doing local, and that's when it kind of started, November of 2004, on my own. But up until that point in time, a lover of sports, was helping create that content and helping out Mark Patrick, who I owe a great deal to, because I saw how it is to be at that level, and how it is to produce every day.
So talk us through a day in the life of JMV.
Yeah. Well, I like to get up. I get up, and I try to notice all that is going on. And people say, well, how do you prep for the show? I think I prep by living. Like, I get up, and I find out what people around here want, right? Because people around here don't necessarily want what people nationally want, and vice versa. Like the national level product, which you will hear, ESPN, Fox, whatever, they're not really going to care about what people around here care about. So I wake up every day trying to figure out what people around here care about, what they want to talk about, and understanding that for the most of the part, unless it's Andrew Luck retiring 5 minutes before the start of the season, nationally, nobody's really going to care about what the Colts are doing or what the Pacers are doing or IU or Purdue. So I think you have to make sure that the people here have that outlet whenever they want it to talk about what matters to them. And that is the difference between local radio and national. And the other is, and we've been out enough to know this. You mentioned people that come out to the shows. Nationally, you can do 3 hours and disappear behind a curtain and then reemerge the next day. Here, I do 3 hours, and then I go out and I'm playing pickup basketball with these dudes that just listened. Or I'm seeing people at the store with these people that just listened. So they hold you accountable around here, which I love every day. You're a part of the fabric of the community, and it's just always going to be different to me.
One of the things I hear a lot about JMV, because obviously your name comes up a lot with what we do in consultation and patients, is JMV's the same guy on the radio that he is off the radio. And I think that's a secret to your success, because I think some people think you can be one person here and a different person here. In a market like this, you just can't. And certainly not and have a long-term career. So I think that's something you've done phenomenally well.
There's no shtick. This is all me, for better or for worse. This is definitely all me. There's the difference that lies between national, when you disappear behind a curtain, and local, to where you're going out with everybody. Because people around here, I love people around here. That's why I love it. That's always I always wanted to stay. Is because they'll hold you accountable. Like, I'll be in line getting cottage cheese or something. They're like, hey, what's this stuff about Anthony Richardson? Why aren't you a believer? Why are you not a believer in him? He's only had 2 years. He hasn't played very much. Get an answer to that, and that's fine. And that's just a difference between that and what you would get at the national level. And we provide a service that you just aren't going to find anyplace else here.
What's the biggest challenge about being live on air for you every day? What is the biggest challenge around that?
Well, obviously it's content, because sometimes you do kind of Pied Piper with what the national vibe or pulse is. And we have the Indians, which is a great experience, but it's not Major League Baseball. So you have to find what most interests people. Again, that's something difficult locally, and it can't be manufactured. It can't be made up. I don't like to go in there, and I call it half-assing, say, hey, what's your favorite top 5 of this? Or, get mad about all these old school topics that we've worn out over the years. You have to continuously try to find areas in which are interesting for not just the ones that stay every day for 3 hours, but also making sure you build the audience with those, Darren, that may never have thought about listening to sports talk. And I think that's a challenge. I've always been up for challenges and competition, and I think that's a challenge and competition we have in radio, especially locally, is to create something new.
Personally, growing up, your sports, from an athletics point of view and a sporting point of view, what influenced you, and what was your true passion from a sport point of view?
Well, I love basketball, and that still holds true today. I still play all the time. It probably stems from the fact that I wasn't good enough to really. I wasn't good enough.
Now, real quick, I heard you don't like to play defense.
I don't like to play
Is that
defense,
true?
but
A little birdie
I
told
will
me
say
that.
this: I'm more capable of it now because I've lost a little bit of weight and I can move around.
So my source may have been,
I can move around. I have in my mind what I want to do, and here's the reason why I do is because I sit at home and then I go on the air and say. Give you a great example. Well, you know what? The Pacers out front, they can't go at anybody. You got to move your feet a little bit better. You got to take away something from the game. You got to close out. So I don't want to be hypocritical. So I try to pass along at a much lower level the ideas and the interpretations I have on my show to, all right, well, you got to close out on this guy. Well, you can't go into the screen on this guy. Well, you got to make sure that you don't let them in the lane. You don't let them get where they want to go or they feel comfortable with the ball. So, yeah. No, but I grew up, it's funny how that goes. I'm critical about somebody on the air. I think I take that to me, again, at a much lower level.
Sure.
But I love basketball, and it's probably because – well, it's the state of Indiana for one,
right.
And I grew up in a golden era of basketball around here. And if you weren't around here during that point in time, and it was really precursor to the Pacers. The Pacers weren't really good until the 90s. Prior to that was ABA, which was much before us. But, from IU basketball to everybody loved that. High school level basketball was just different, and I think that is where my love of basketball grew, and I'm big on competition, and I just don't get a similar competition. I could go out and run and get on a treadmill or the elliptical, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
I like to get out, and I like to play. I like to sweat. I like there to be consequences, even at the age of 55.
It's a metaphor for life.
It is. It really is, too.
Yeah.
So basketball is where that all started.
So it's the end of January, of course, one of my favourite times of year, I'm sure yours, March Madness. It's fast approaching, so some early tips, picks. I know it's a lottery.
Well, yeah.
But what are you seeing?
Well, I mean, I look at the quick teams. I mean, I think you always look at guard play, certainly. Auburn, for a good reason.
Yes.
Alabama, for another good reason. Duke is stacked. I mean, you look at kind of the usual suspects, and you've seen certainly Auburn and Alabama take off basketball-wise here recently because of NIL and because of the transfer portal, and they will continue to do that. Big Ten-wise, at least as we sit here right now, IU seems to be in trouble. Purdue just kind of is maintaining without Zach Edey in normal Matt Painter fashion. And we'll see Dusty May, who's the head coach of Michigan, I grew up with, is a friend of mine from where I grew up at Eastern Green. He's also a graduate at Eastern Green. And we'll see what he does with Michigan. And since he was once upon a time an IU, not only an IU assistant, but an IU manager, we'll see if they have any interest if things don't work out down there with their head coach, Mike Woodson. So, you just kind of look across the board. I like the two teams in the SEC. I like Duke a great deal. They haven't looked good this year, but you never count out two-time defending champion UConn because they have been so good, so strong.
They've got that pedigree, haven't they? When it gets...
They have certainly developed that pedigree. I think the thing that really bums me out about NIL, and this is just me selfishly, think about last year with my Indiana State Sycamores. I got to get excited. And I didn't even know the NIT still exists. I got excited about an NIT run.
Yeah.
And they had a good season, fell short in their conference tournament, go to the NIT, go all the way to the championship game.
Yep.
It was at Hinkle. That was fun as heck.
Yes.
But you knew that there was going to be an expiration date for the coach, and you knew for all their players. And then when you think about it right now, their coach is in St. Louis. They're two players in Texas, one player at Xavier, and then two other players at St. Louis that went with the coach. They absolutely got shredded, and I told everybody before that point in time with NIL and with the transfer portal, that's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
These mid-majors are going to have guys that grow, and then they're going to be able to make and earn more money someplace else. So it's going to be a one and done.
I just want to go back really quickly. So the JMV Takeover,
Yes.
which we love, how did that come about?
So during...
And do you ever actually take any time off?
No. Well, yeah, maybe at the end of November when they go to Christmas music,
Sure.
I do. But it's funny. We talked a little bit earlier about how I grew up, and I love DJs.
Yep.
I love DJs. I love the sound of the DJ voice. I love the DJ talking up songs and hitting it right before it starts. It's called hitting the post. It always kind of pumped me up. And that was the most fun part about being a music DJ. So when COVID hit, I'm just kind of sitting around doing nothing, and I'm thinking, well, why don't I do something while I'm doing nothing? And I called Sean Copeland, who's the PD at B1057, and I said, hey, how about if I slide in there, do a couple of hours, and see how that goes? So it all started during COVID. I went in, it's on Saturday mornings from like 8 until noon, and just played whatever was on their list. And it got to be fun and more fun. And then I thought, there's no all request shows. We used to have all request shows all the time where people call up, request a song, and then you with them hit the post. All right, they get to hear themselves on the radio talking up their favorite song. And we needed a time too to where everybody was going to come together. And because everybody was sitting at home doing nothing. So I think this hit at the right time and people loved it. And I never would have thought that we could bring people together out of music that's 40, 50 years old. Yeah. And others, naysayers would suggest, well, you can get that anywhere. I mean, you can play that song whenever you want. You don't have to hear it on the radio. But you can't hear yourself talking it up anywhere else. Yeah. All right, this is you talking up the song with me. You're hitting the post on your favorite song on the radio for everybody to hear. And that was something that when you and I grew up in radio, that was commonplace. Sure. It is no longer commonplace. It's been replaced by voice tracking with technology. Yes. Everything is taped for the most part. And I wanted to bring a live, no-net version of radio that simply did not exist any longer. So I go in there every Saturday night from 6 until midnight. That kind of evolved from early Saturday mornings to 6 until midnight, to where I have a catalog of music on desktop, another catalog of music on desktop, because I play everything, and then my own catalog of music on desktop, and I'm working. It's like I'm working back and forth between 3 turntables and answering phones and then cobbling all that together, every song. And the best part about it is, this is what it never grows old for me, is I don't know what's next. Yeah. Like, I'll be talking to somebody
live radio,
and my song will be a minute and a half, and I have no idea where we're going next. Sure. That's glorious to me. I love that. It is working without a net. It is fun. That's what radio is supposed to be about. And then it localizes it to where people around here have something that nobody else has, because I can tell you, this is one of one. Nobody else is allowed. Like Sean Copeland and David Wood, my bosses, say, yeah, go in there and do whatever the hell you want. Nobody allows that. Yeah. Think about letting some clown like me go, hey, you know what? We're really, B1057 is top-ranked station. Yeah. And they let me go in there and erase everything and do what I want. It is unheard of, and that has taken off in popularity because...
Oh, it's a different audience, too. Like, you're bringing a whole different audience.
And I bring in a different audience with that, and then they make the transition to the sports. Exactly. And a lot of my sports audience makes the transition. Because the one thing that we realize, and I've realized this long before anybody else, I give away tickets all the time, concert tickets on my show. And people say, well, wait a minute, it's sports. I hit everything. Like, I'll hit the country fan, the rock fan, the R&B fan, the fan of EDM. I have all fans. Yes. So when you're giving away tickets to shows, the country fans, are going to go to the country station. The rock fans are going to go to the rock station. Well, now all the tickets can come to me because I have them all right here. And I think it had long been forgotten that everybody out there that's a sports fan is also a significant music fan. Right. And one goes, that's why they play music at games, right? There's never downtime. There's always something playing in the background. You merge the two together.
If we think forward 10 years, where's JMV in 10 years? What's he doing in 10 years? Where do you see?
Am I going to be retired in 10 years?
That's why I'm asking you that question.
65. I am hoping, and I think that's the key to what I do, and I tell this to my colleagues all the time, I think we're always going to be necessary because, again, we bring an aspect of content that others won't and can't. We give people around Indy a reason to listen because it's something they care about. Because you can't easily get stuff you care about around here.
Sure.
You have to find it, and we provide that. So I think the spoken word in radio is going to be key. But I think we have to keep in mind the one thing I've found out is with my radio show and the spoken word in the afternoon and with the JMV Takeover is there is an angle to where you can give people what they want.
Yes.
And I think that shows people what they want. They want you live. They want to know that you're right there with them. They want to know that you are in on the content or what they want, their feelings right then and right now. I don't think that they want to know that it was taped on Wednesday with no regard for what's happening on Saturday, for example. So I think with radio, because there are so many different things coming at radio right now, the one thing we have going for us is being live and local and late breaking to a level. And, that's also, I know you work with Rob too. So that's also with 93 WIBC. Rob and the gang there right across the hall from me, they provide something that nobody else can give you anywhere. So that is, I think, always going to be able to be maintained as long as we don't dick it up around here, which, sometimes we're good at. But hopefully that's not the case. But I just think we're always going to be necessary as long as we're real and we're true, and we continue to care about the things that people around here care about. Because I don't think that's going to change. Generationally, you're going to have the same people, right?
Yep. I think that's, again, using that word metaphor for life and business. And, that's the Midwest. It's what people want. We should circle back on your hair. Of course, that's one of the reasons we're here. So talk to me about hair loss. So when did this start? When did you notice it? What did you do? How did it impact you?
I've always had, I think, they call it fine hair.
Fine hair, yes.
Fine hair. I always look like an early Nick Nolte. Look at Nick Nolte in 48 Hours or North Dallas 40. I think I had like Nick Nolte hair like that. I had kind of like fine hair where you thought, one of these days this dude's going to be bald. You know what I mean? And I remember back in 1992, I'm at Indiana State, and I'm with a friend. I'm at this girl's apartment, and I'm laying on the floor, and I remember this so vividly. Her name is Julie White, and I'm still pissed. She said, "Wow, your hair is so thin." Now, there's a difference between fine and thin. All right? Thin means you're about ready to go bald, which basically it's the same thing. But I knew that I was going to have some issues further down the road. And it's funny, when I mentioned Mark Patrick a little bit earlier, the legend around here, he used to wear his headphones back here. And I used to go, well, you're wearing your headphones back there. Well, because I don't want to develop this. Well, that's what developed on me. That's exactly where the beginning of my hair loss started, right up in here. And I would have to think that's the problem area that you guys have hit on the most and maintained with me. But, I'd mentioned a little bit earlier the basketball game, the Pacer game, where somebody took a picture and then put it out in social media of my bald spot right there.
So how old are you at that stage?
I was 22 when I first learned that I had thin hair from Julie White.
Thanks, Julie.
And then it was years, probably, 15 more years after that, is when we came into contact at that particular Pacer game, where either something was going to be done or I was going to have the classic horseshoe design, George Costanza type of thing that probably was going to happen. And I think the best part about this is, and I try to explain this every single day, this is natural. All right? It's natural that you're losing it, but you have the options right now to where you can naturally regrow it. And I, like you, came from an era where, everybody was always trying to sell you spray paint or, this Chia Pet type of stuff that you could spray your dome with or you had a Howard Cosell wig that you were always afraid to walk out of the old RCA dome with the air and afraid that your toupee was going to fly off or something like that. That's what I didn't want. That's what nobody wants.
Right.
But that's why We Grow Hair Indy is different, because you have ways and means, and I mentioned the technology earlier. It seems like every single year you guys evolve to a higher level to help maintain. And I'm going through the whole booster process right now to help maintain that hair growth. And I'm glad I took advantage of it. I'm glad you reached out to me, because I would probably be pretty bald right now.
Yeah, we did multi-unit hair grafting with you, of course, and we did a large area in the crown, about that large, and then we've done other things to maintain the hair that's not transplanted, of course. Sort of tying in having hair and being in the industry you're in now. Back in the day, no one saw you, right?
No.
So the change in technology and how that has shifted the importance of looking after yourself, because now people know the face, they don't just know the voice.
Right. Well, and again, I want to tell people, I think most people are worried about this being something that is fake, and it's not. It's real, and it becomes your lifestyle again. And people notice.
Yeah.
People notice, how you maintain your hair growth and how it continues to grow, much like they would notice if you were going bald.
What's amazing, people come in for a consultation, and I actually had a guy last week, and you would think you were his best friend. He's never actually met you,
because we're all the same.
But exactly, and the fact that you're the same person on the air as you are off the air, when you talk about how much you love having your hair back, people trust that, and they want to experience the same thing.
I explain, and I try to make an impression on people when I'm talking you guys up. Like, we can have scripts, but I choose not to have a script, because I want it to be the same every time, the message, but I want the message to be changed. And I constantly bring up 1982 and me at the Bloomington Mall, the College Mall, and Command Performance in the window right there with Debbie giving me the Steve Alford haircut, giving me the butt cut, parted down the middle, feathered on the side, comb in the back pocket back in the 1980s. That's how I want. That's how I want it. And even if I don't want to have my hair like that, you can if you want it. I want the option. And we know nowadays that people want the option. They want to have optionality in anything. I mean, that was a word that somebody has just made up out of nowhere. Optionality. It's not even a real word, but now it is, because people want options, and people want options in not losing their hair.
Losing hair,
Because it's funny on Seinfeld with George Costanza, but I'm not sure a lot of people out there want to go, you know what, I really like that Costanza look, let's go for that. So it's different, and this has had a profound impact on my life, and I cannot thank you enough for it.
It's been great. It's just such a pleasure to work with you, and I think the time, the length of time we've had the relationship now, 9 years, is a testament to how good you are at what you do, and how it's been mutually beneficial, and we've helped so many people. It's amazing. This has been, we could talk for hours, obviously, we can't.
And so I've been known to go on forever.
I know you've got to get back to the routine. So look, man, this has been great. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the support. It's been fantastic to help you out with your hair. Long may that relationship continue.
You guys are the best.
It's been great. So guys, obviously, Mr. JMV, 1070 The Fan, where can we follow you? Where can we find you? I mean,
you could JMV at 1075thefan.com. All my podcast at 1075thefan.com. I am all over social at JMV 1070. You can find me on X. You can find me on Facebook. Very easy. But I am always talking up WeGrowHairIndy.com, 888-724-5129. Seriously, optionality, right? We make up a word for this, optionality for your real growing hair. This is Darren Andrews right here.
Email us at info@wegrowhairindy.com with your questions or topics you want to cover. Head to our website to schedule your free consultation with one of our experts. I'm Darren Andrews. Thank you for listening. Catch you next time.